what I always lean back on is our customers. At the end of the day, you're serving the customer, not serving a venture capital or an investor or a narrative. Or ultimately subscribe to your customer. Do people enjoy the product? Does it get them to that 0 to 1? Do they legitimately feel like their lives have changed for the better because of your product?
Hey, welcome back to Founder Real Talk. I am your host, Josh Broward, CEO of Wisdom Partners, and we as a company are all about supporting founders and helping them navigate the growth process. And part of that is just being real, that the growth is hard. Like, people think the only time a startup is hard is when it fails, but like, even if it succeeds, it's super hard. Like, you get your knocks all the way up the mountain, and it doesn't help us to pretend that doesn't happen. So this podcast is about show and tell for our bruises and scrapes and scars. So today we have Yash Ghanekar with us. He is the CEO and founder of Moksha, which is a startup building breathing-based tools and wearables to reduce anxiety and stress. Moksha is a smart device that turns breathwork and meditation into a game. So Yash, I'm super excited to have you on. Several people in my extended family have had anxiety challenges and panic attacks, and I wish they had something like Moksha.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the podcast, Josh. And I'm excited to discuss these topics a lot deeper.
Before we go deeper, help us understand what problem you're really solving with Moksha and how in the world breath work can be a game.
Yeah, so back in 2021, at the height of COVID, I was seeing a lot of my friends and family extremely stressed. I had also recently lost one of my really close friends and was going through a grieving process. And so at the time, I was resorting for all kinds of natural solutions to calm myself down. I would go to grief therapy. I would try to do some meditations, and it was pretty much a unbreakable cycle. I would open a meditation app, I'd close my eyes, and suddenly the worst thoughts I've ever thought of enter my mind. I'd open my eyes and say, like, did this work at all? And so my dad suggested trying to do some breath work because it gives you a lot more control. I thought it was dumb at first, I'm not gonna lie. I started counting my breaths, and then finally, for the first time in what felt like weeks, I fell asleep. The first thing I did was Google breath work after that. I picked up this book by James Nestor called Breath and started doing a deep dive into how breath work actually works. And in there, I found that it's amazing. There's so many different layers to breathwork, and it also gives people a lot more control. And so simultaneously, I think TikTok was having its big moment, and I was starting to see these interactive breathwork games on the app. There was a popular page called Breathwork and another one called Breath Break. Both of those had really simple interactive exercises you can do as you scrolled. And what I was seeing was that there was an insane amount of engagement on these simple mechanics. And so that was the original inception. We also saw people selling breathwork necklaces at the time. So given my entrepreneurial experience, I wanted to kind of break into that space and say, hey, what if we build physical products in a space that so far has been dominated by digital assets like Calm and Headspace?
So how does it work? I guess that's
Yeah.
the best question.
And so the necklace worked in a simple way. All it did was it slowed down your exhale and it would trigger your parasympathetic nervous system. So the whole science behind it is, say, if you're in fight and flight, you start to hyperventilate, getting rid of a lot of CO2 in your body. Say, like, suddenly a bear approaches you. You start getting stressed, you start exhaling a lot and very quickly. Over time, the human body has started taking more exhales, putting us in a state of fight or flight at all times with simple things like meetings or getting ready for a podcast. The idea of breath work is to reverse that process, stabilize your CO2 levels, and trigger your parasympathetic nervous system. So that's what Moksha does. Our first product, all it did was slow down your exhale. It was an easy reminder during a meeting or long day of work that you can take a deep breath and you can regulate your nervous system without having to download an app. What we saw was that a lot of our customers were obsessively using this necklace and kind of just funneling out. And so that was the inspiration behind adding tech into it. It's ultimately why we created Moksha, which kind of looks like a vape, which is by design. But in it has sensors that interact with your breath, and it allows you to manipulate different parts of the app. So imagine putting out a fire, blowing up a balloon, or moving mountains just by breathing. And so it snowballed into this entire thing, but now we have a smart device that makes breath work fun for people.
Cool. And just so people are kind of caught up to speed, the necklace wasn't like a chain with a cross on it or something. It was like almost like a whistle.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So it was purely mechanical. The thesis that we had was that a physical device could actually help calm you down when you needed it the most, as opposed to setting aside this time to do like this whole ritual. And so that's what people gravitated towards. And then we found like our kind of entry point into the market with that.
Okay. And what's a win that you're really proud of for your team over the last year?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think in the age of AI, like your entire goal is to have speed and momentum, but our win is actually the opposite. It's doing the slow things that actually compounded over time that yielded results. And this past year, it's been amazing. After 4 years of like R&D and development, we started to see our first wins. We had our first like 100 unit sales month of product. We had our first paying subscribers that bought for a year. We had our first major partnership on the smart device. And so there's a lot of small wins there. But I think the main thing is like staying the course, really grinding it out, figuring out what people don't like and like about the product, and then seeing that light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. Great. Thinking in the opposite direction, tell us about one of your scars from when things were tough and maybe it was a failure, maybe it was a struggle, and what you learned from it.
Yeah. So I'd say pretty much everything besides that has been difficult, especially when you're creating a new product in the market. People don't understand it. People are trying to process it, and you have to deal with a lot of rejection. Even like yesterday, I got rejected from a program, and I don't think that will ever go away. I think the best thing you can do is understand why people feel that way. And so for us, yeah, personally, it's been getting to that status of we're a backable company. People don't fundamentally understand those things until the market has been created. If you look at Whoop, if you look at Aura, they all had very difficult times saying, hey, we're going to build this $1 billion wearable company. It's going to be a ring on your finger. People didn't fundamentally understand that at the time. And now you see so many different kind of ring companies popping up. And so for us, it's definitely been that narrative around funding and that narrative around being taken seriously. And so what I always lean back on is our customers. At the end of the day, you're serving the customer, not serving a venture capital or an investor or a narrative. Or ultimately subscribe to your customer. Do people enjoy the product? Does it get them to that 0 to 1? Do they legitimately feel like their lives have changed for the better because of your product? And so that's kind of how we've gone through these battle scars, is just leaning back on our community, the customers that we're impacting through the product.
Well, so let's double click on that. I'm guessing at least you have some cool anecdotal stories, but maybe you have some data on how Moksha works, like what kind of impact it makes physiologically or mental health wise, or so give us some quick hits.
Yeah. So this smart device has 4 times the 30-day retention of any leading meditation app,
Of
which
any
I found 4 times the retention of any leading meditation app.
Okay, so like
So,
Headspace or Calm or
yeah,
whatever.
Headspace and Calm. So 96%
Start
of
it
their
and then
users,
quit.
yeah, yep, exactly. 96% of their users stop using a meditation app within 30 days. For us, we're
I'm
seeing
one
a
of those people.
oh, really? Okay.
I've quit both Calm and Headspace multiple times.
Yeah, yeah. And there's no real like feedback system. There's no gratification from completing your exercises. There's no progression of characters. And these are all these different things that we pride ourselves in. And so I'd say that's like the biggest component. People buy Moksha and they actually stick with it. They get to their first 30 days of meditation and breath work. And to me, that was fascinating. Besides that, we have a whole community of people that have become reliant on kind of using these mini games and these small interactive exercises as a comfort tool for them. And so we're still very early in the days of monitoring the data around it and seeing like how it's impacting stress levels. But those are things that we definitely want to go deeper on later.
Okay. So basically right now the data is retention levels. Like you're doing way better at retaining people, but you're still working on getting the more clinical data. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So my first step with Moksha was to make sure it's a product that people love and it's a product that they can feel safe coming back to, which means like not attacking them with paywalls. It means not giving them any ambiguity on their meditations. It's being able to like progress your story and really understand where you stand like in your mindfulness and mental health journey. And so this is a small display of the screen. Let me
Yeah.
change the visual effects real quick.
Yeah, I can see.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so there's a lot of like mini gamification components we've added into the product, which starts with something as simple as taking your first breath each day that's like slow and calculated. And each one of these small tasks give you points which progress you on your journey. And then the core components of the app are these fun interactive meditations. And so everything is controlled by your breath. When the actual animations appear on screen, the exhales are all controlled with your breath. A lot of the internal components of the app are mini games and small kind of mechanics that people are able to engage with. Yeah, and then we have like meditations built into the app too that we give to our subscribers. But I think yeah, just having something quantifiable for people in the meditation world has been huge.
What does it cost? Do you mind if I ask?
Yeah, so this smart device is 130 MSRP. We
Okay.
do like special bundles and discounts at all times, but as of right now, yeah, 130.
Okay. And then is there a monthly subscription for the app?
Yeah, so the app is not required to have a subscription. If you want unlimited meditations, which are released every single week that interact with the device, there's a nominal like subscription fee of $4.99 a month. But we are moving towards a gamification system. So as you do these like long exhales, these mini games, you collect gems, and you're able to actually override the subscription by purchasing meditations with your gems.
So basically, using it a lot makes it easier to use it more.
Exactly. Yep. And then we also have a store if you want to take a shortcut and just purchase a lot of gems.
Nice. What's the biggest challenge you're trying to solve right now?
I think it's distribution. We don't have like the luxury, I guess, of being able to do a freemium method to this. I think Whoop itself started with like a free band and plus subscription. And I think you would just need a lot of capital for that. And so figuring out a unique way to distribute a hardware product when you don't necessarily have a lot of allies in the space that are building this. And so that's been our biggest challenge.
What are you doing to try to address that?
Yeah, so we landed a really cool partnership with a B2B company that does corporate gifting, which has been awesome. They work with companies like Apple and Oracle for their employee benefits programs. And so I think that's a good first step. But ultimately, like we are working on it with B2B and also finding people with large audiences to collaborate with.
Let's double click on that because I I think a lot of people, whether it's software or hardware, landing distribution partners is, I don't want to say the dream, but it's like a clear step in the scaling process because you're able to move beyond the onesie twosie sales and get to 100 and 1,000 sales. So, how did you find your first distribution partner, and how are you trying to find your second, third, fourth?
Yeah. So I think like the biggest insight when trying to close partnerships is just being around. Like, can you be around long enough until they want you or they need you? And so with our first like distribution partnership, it was a client that had been kind of on our radar for a really long time. And we would send them cold messages, which ended up becoming warm messages over time, right? And eventually they reach out to us and said, hey, we want your product. I think it would be perfect for our wellness basket. And so that was like one of our big B2B distributors. Another thing is just being visible. So being around and being visible were the most important things. We started our paid ad approach in kind of a scarcity mindset. We would start deploying an ad budget. If we didn't see the results, we would scale back or we'd get scared. But being visible over time has brought us so many opportunities. And each one of those has led to a big swing for us. And so I'd say, yeah, those two things have helped a lot on top of just like the daily grind of sending out messages and posting as much as you can.
Okay, so let's double click on ad spend because
Yeah.
that's a difficult one too. People say fail fast, iterate fast, that kind of stuff. It sounds like you have a bit of a tweak or a different experience of that. So, like, the typical advice for startups is do A/B testing with your ads. Try this and this, see which one works, quit the one that doesn't work. And if nothing works, like maybe you're doing the wrong thing altogether. What was your experience like in that? And what did you learn in the process? What made you persevere beyond that kind of helpful but simplistic advice?
Yeah, so helpful and simplistic. It's a pretty complicated issue, I guess, with the ad space because no one really knows the answers. And if someone did, then every single person would be rich off paid ads, right? And so, to your point, there's a lot of A through Z testing. What I've learned is the process is very predicated on what product you have. And so, depending on what you're trying to sell, it may look completely different. But ultimately, understanding your product to its core, the values that it provides to its customers, is what is going to design your paid ads process. For us, we're kind of a first mover product. People don't wake up every day and say, hey, we want gamified meditation tools. It's our job to break down the funnel and really understand our user. And so what we gave ourselves was 90 days to figure out how the hell to get someone that has no idea about the product to purchase our product. And so something that scales to any company is just an awareness funnel. Can you educate someone? Can you make them aware of your product? Can you sell them on the product? And then can you make them like buy more of your product? And so I think loosely you can apply those concepts, but the name of the game today is just creative. It's media buying and lots of creative. And so for us, we found like the most lots of creative. For us, we found like the most simple static video ad, like a catalog almost video ad, was the one that had like the winning angle. And we tested all these like UGC creators. We had these cinematic videos, so many different tools. But if you're not adapting like on the daily level, you're not gonna make it. Like that same ad that's performing well on Meta completely tanked on TikTok. And then almost going against the grain sometimes. Like some of the advice that I received was don't overproduce anything for TikTok. Keep it casual, pick up your phone and just start recording. And for us, it didn't work. But the overproduced, the cinematic videos are doing well on TikTok and it's not doing well on Meta. So try things that people tell you not to try. The best you can do is succeed. The worst you can do is just go back to the drawing board, but try it. Like try early.
Okay, so I think I heard two different, I don't know, timelines or statements that might sound like they conflict.
Okay.
So, but I think it's probably just how we're thinking about it. So on one hand, I heard you say we give ourselves 90 days to figure out if it works. And on the other, I heard you say we're iterating and being creative and changing stuff every day.
Yeah.
Walk us through how does it work to give yourself 90 days and iterate every day?
Okay, yeah. Yeah. Good thing to point out. So we give ourselves 90 days to review the process. And so like our strategy will take 90 days to implement. The 90-day process is quick, rapid iteration on a specific amount of platforms. So for us, it was Meta and TikTok. Give ourselves 90 days and reevaluate the overall performance after 90 days. But that doesn't mean just test and deploy. It means test 8 different angles. Within those 8 different angles, create multiple creatives, figure it out, and then reevaluate in 90 days. Before that, like I would cut a campaign short in like 3 weeks. If we weren't succeeding, I would get scared and say, hey, we're gonna run out of capital or we're gonna dig ourselves in a hole. For us, like weirdly enough, like by that 30 to 40 day mark, we start to see that hockey stick you're talking about, where like if we put the right creative around like one angle, then it starts to actually pick up. And so like we're starting to gather all these insights later on. It's important to give yourself time to figure it out.
So let me summarize what I think I'm hearing you say. You give yourself 90 days for an intentional experimentation process to find out what works. And then during that 90 days, you're going to iterate and try stuff over and over. And maybe the place where many founders go wrong is their experimentation cycle is too short. They're like, oh, we're going to experiment for a month, and if Meta doesn't work, we're going to switch to TikTok.
Yeah.
But you're saying it actually takes a month and a half before it starts to work, and then it takes another couple of weeks before it's like, ooh, it's buzzing.
Yep, that's correct. Yep, exactly. So for us, like, yeah, it took half that time to even see something kind of stick. And then the back half of those 45 days, we actually start to see things we can build on top of.
Okay, that's really helpful. How have you evolved since you started Moksha?
It's an amazing question. I would say that I've just learned a lot of things by trial and error. And before that, I would be kind of naive and almost in a way too confident in a process. And I think over the process of building Moksha, it's really humbled me. I realized so many different perspectives, and I learned how complicated building a business is. And so my evolution has been learning how to reinvent myself frequently. And so that version of me that thought that this necklace would take us to like the promised land, that we didn't have to do anything besides build this tube and just sell it online, is long gone. And so I'm sure this version of me right now is going to look back and say, hey, there's so many things you didn't understand. So just constantly being in the evolution mindset.
I have 2 follow-up questions. One is, what has helped you make those evolutions? Like reinvent yourself.
Yeah. So the biggest thing is having a feedback loop, right? So if you like change something, you need to see if it works. The first time we launched this smart device, we had a lot more people feel anxiety than reduce anxiety. And that feedback loop was so helpful in understanding how to evolve myself as product manager, as a CEO, as a leader. And so if you don't have a feedback loop, then you just don't know how to improve. And so having people that are around you that can hold you accountable, having customers that you talk to every single day, I think that's super important.
I'm hearing you describe the evolution of the product as almost a parallel journey or the same journey as the evolution of you as a leader.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So I think when you're building something so obsessively, you kind of become an extension of the product. And for me personally, like I found myself, if I was completely tunnel vision on building the product and I was over featuring, like this first version of the product had like 100 features, my life was also just surrounded thinking about product, and the product felt cluttered. My brain felt cluttered. And so as I simplify those processes and say like take a few steps out and say, hey, it doesn't need to be that complicated. The product needs to calm someone down. My brain would kind of declutter at the same time. And so it kind of always runs in parallel. It feels like the less I think about it, the less I overcomplicate it, the less I feel stressed and overwhelmed.
So that's kind of how you've in some ways you learned to evolve. It was your evolution.
Yeah.
What do you think, looking toward the next year of Moksha, as you guys are you've hit some key milestones, selling 100 units in a month, and probably that's going to hit 1,000 at some point in the near future. What will that cause you to need? How will you need to evolve?
Yeah. So we had a similar process with the necklace. Like we had the 100 unit months, then we had the 100 unit days, and we had our first 6 figure months with the necklace. And I think in my brain, I was like, I was only thinking two things. I'm like, oh, we were rich was one of them. And then like, how do we 10x this? And like, not really understanding what goes into that process. And so I think for us, like on the smart device, is really simplifying things for us, writing out the steps of what's next and not just like getting there and not knowing what to do. And I think that's something I have a big problem with. Is like my brain sometimes my thought process is very scattered. I'm like thinking of this thing, I'm thinking of um, how to get the next batch. I'm thinking of going to China to see our manufacturers, and I'm like not organizing my thoughts well, and I'm not planning properly for the future. And so really taking time right now to figure out what steps will look like once we hit that 100 unit day.
And that's great. Thank you. How have you invested in yourself and your own leadership over the past year?
I started reading for the first time in a long time. Before this, I think the last book that I read was like Magic Treehouse. I wasn't a big reader. Most of my learnings came from just things online and articles. And my friend who's been just begging me to read, he's like, "This is the one thing that's holding me back is that you're not reading from other people's experiences." Reading about a lot of the great leaders like Steve Jobs, I'm like reading that book right now. It's kind of incredible to see how leadership styles work for specific products and specific teams. And so just kind of taking it different advice from the people before me that succeeded so well and implementing it into my own company has been like the biggest, I guess, needle mover for me as a leader.
Nice. So if somebody out there is thinking, well, let's start with the simple. Somebody's like, Moksha sounds amazing. I want it for me or my kid or my brother or whatever. How do
Yeah.
they get it?
They can just go to moksha.site, MOKSHA site.
Moksha dot. Sorry,
Site.
say it one more time. I
Yeah,
interrupted you. Spell it again.
MOKSHA.SITE, or they can just type in Moksha01 and purchase it on Amazon.
Okay. And then if somebody thinks, I know like a more institutional leader who should talk to Yash, like whether it's somebody in a mental health, in the mental health field or the medical field or a VC, who are you trying to meet these days?
Yeah, so the two type of people we're trying to meet, one is going to be people that have large mental health audiences. I think there's this huge movement kind of around regulating your nervous system, the vagus nerve, biohacking, those kind of people who are very passionate about the space. I think the things that we can discover with breath work, we're only at the 1% mark. I think there's so much more to discover within breath work. And so that's one. And then two, people that can really open doors in terms of distribution for us.
Okay, cool. Well, Yash, thank you so much for your time today. Thanks for being part of this and sharing some of your real journey.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Josh. Really appreciate the questions. And